So yeah, Samsung copied Apple, and it's not really that big of a deal. Over the last week, I've seen a lot of people talk about how Samsung just ripped off Apple's AirPods and Apple Watch Ultra design, and yeah, they kind of did. Apple released AirPods along with the iPhone 7 back in 2016, and overall they were a huge success despite the amount of people that were making fun of Apple users for using them in the first place because they look like toothbrushes in your ear. Fast forward 8 years, Samsung has now finally released their Galaxy Buds and Galaxy Buds Pro. So what's important here is not necessarily the way that they look, but the way that they function, sound, and what makes them different than AirPods. Do they look like AirPods? Absolutely. I'm not going to say that they don't. Looking on the Samsung website for a minute, the Buds Pro have adaptive noise cancellation, spatial audio tracking, force-sensitive touch controls, and a silver color. On paper, I would say that they essentially have the same features as AirPods. The big thing here is the aesthetics of the Galaxy Buds. The stem is called a blade, and it's more angular with a brand new colorway that will stand out against the AirPods. They also have a light bar on the outside of the earphone that maybe could help you find it if you lose it somewhere, but outside of that, I kind of see them as carbon copies of the AirPods. Typical copyright infringement is based on core technology practices and patented design elements. So yes, the earbuds do look similar, but they don't necessarily fall on the grounds of copyright. What does fall under copyright, however, is functionality and the way that the system operates. For example, let's take the Apple v. Massimo lawsuit. The lawsuit is based around the pulse oximeter monitoring system that Apple is now using in the Apple Watch. In June of 2020, Massimo filed a dispute against Apple stating that Apple violated the company's light-based health monitoring patents. Massimo and Circuit Corp claim that Apple's hiring of Circuit Corp Chief Technology Officer Marcello Lemego and Massimo's Chief Medical Officer Michael O'Reilly allowed Apple to gain a competitive advantage through their knowledge of Massimo's technology. In October of 2023, the ITC put an import ban on the Apple Watch Series 6 through Series 9, effectively making it illegal for Apple to go and sell the Apple Watches in the United States. Apple attempted to change the way that the blood oxygen saturation application operated in attempts to avoid a permanent ban, but those attempts failed. And eventually, with a bunch of back and forth, Apple finally did get the appeal and was able to then resume selling Apple Watches a couple months later. This lawsuit was based on Apple taking core technology from Massimo that they had patented and then putting it inside their Apple Watches. And that is copyright infringement and is grounds to sue. I don't know how well it would go if Apple tried to go and sue Samsung over the form factor. It would be really hard for Apple to go and argue that just because something looks similar, that Samsung violated one of their patents or copyrights. If they found that a core technology Samsung used to achieve their adaptive noise cancellation feature infringes on Apple's similar feature, then you have grounds for suit. But if it's different, there you go, no lawsuit. And that goes for the Galaxy Watch Ultra too. Now for the consumer side of things, set aside the way that they look and let's talk about the way that they function and sound. From the reviews that I've seen online, they function and sound pretty okay, which would be a departure from my own personal experience with Samsung products. I've used both the Galaxy Buds and the Galaxy Watches in its various iterations over the last couple of years, and they don't work as advertised. From my experience, Apple's does. When I open up an Apple product, not only do I know that
it just all works,
but I know that my service experience, if my item ever does end up breaking, not only will be handled with some seriousness, it will be handled quickly and efficiently. So a few years ago, my M1 MacBook Pro completely died out of nowhere, and I took it to the Apple store to get it repaired. They said that my motherboard had died, and after finding a couple other issues with the computer, they opted to just completely give me a brand new computer. Not only did they give me a brand new MacBook Pro, they gave me a better one. The one that they replaced my original one with had an M1 Max chip in it, 64 gigs of RAM, and 2 terabytes of storage, which was roughly about a $2,000 upgrade from the one that I originally purchased. In contrast, I had a Samsung Galaxy S4 as my very first smartphone, and in the first 2 years that I had it, it blew up about 6 times in my pocket. And every time past the very first time that this happened, both Samsung and AT&T told me that there was nothing that they could do but make me go and buy a brand new phone. And at the time, I was an anti-Apple girly and vowed that I would never have an iPhone. But after the 6th or 7th time of this happening, I just caved and went and bought an iPhone. And then in 2021, I went and bought a Galaxy Z Flip 3 for my work, and the software experience on that phone was abysmal. I didn't get text messages or phone calls on time. I missed phone calls from my clients and my employees, and after about 2 weeks, I ended up returning the phone and just switching to an eSIM on my iPhone, and I've never looked back. Long story short, my experience with Samsung has not been the best, but it has nothing to do with the way that they design their products or their hardware in general. It has everything to do with the way that they treat their customers and the software experience, not the design. Going back to design, it's not like we're done innovating here. Different form factors do exist and they can be just as functional. I have a friend who just let me try their Bose Ultra Open earbuds a few days ago, and I had never seen or tried earphones like them before, and honestly, I was very surprised by the way that they sounded. For open ear headphones, not only did they sound great, but I was really intrigued with the design of them. Previously, I didn't even know that was a form factor. It is completely different, and despite my initial assumptions of the way that they would feel or the way that they would sound, I was completely wrong. Not only were they comfortable, but they sounded honestly fantastic. I believe that we still have room for new things, form factors, and products in tech. I am disappointed in Samsung's lazy design and naming. I believe that they could have come up with something that is new. I doubt that Apple is going to sue Samsung over the form factor, and ultimately it is going to be up to the consumer to decide whether or not to go buy the Galaxy Buds or the Galaxy Watch Ultra.